Welcome to another episode of Roll Off a Tangent, this one being devoted to discussion of the novelette Goblin Night by James H Schmitz. It's the fourth story that features his heroine Telzey Amberdon, a rich teenager with psi talents. She's relaxing with some friends in a wildlife park when she hears a message in her mind asking for closer contact. She sets off in her Cloudsplitter sky car to investigate. Soon she learns that she's been deceived and trapped. The background is as follows. A maniac called Robane, who was crippled in an accident, has his home in the park. He has acquired a mastery of gadgetry and techniques of sensory rapport with predators, which he controls and directs. He first arranged for the man whom he holds responsible for his injuries to be kidnapped and brought to him, where the fellow was released and, after being told to run for his life, was hunted down and destroyed by the monster. After savouring the terror and death of this victim, Robane wasn't satisfied. He had acquired a taste for vicarious slaughter, and so he makes a hobby of capturing people and enjoying their panicky flight and death. He intends Telzey to be his latest victim. The plot of Goblin Night therefore bears a strong resemblance to Richard Connell's The Most Dangerous Game, but the setting is vastly different, well over 1,000 years in our future, in an interstellar culture called the Federation of the Hub. James Schmitz wrote enough Hub tales to fill 4 fat volumes. Most of the stories take place within a few years of each other, and thus, rather than a future history, they provide a wide-angle panoramic snapshot of a richly varied plenum. The Hub is a star cluster described by one of its enemies as a biological fortress made strong by the resourceful nature of its population. The Hub's over-government leaves its people to their own devices as much as possible, even allowing them to register for private war in some circumstances, the ultimate aim being a resilient population. When threatened, Schmitz's protagonists don't waste time agonizing over their plight. They simply get on with the task of maximizing their chances. Goblin Night exemplifies this theme of resilience. Telzey finds herself in a very tight spot indeed, but the reader can share not only the nightmare sense of being pursued by horror, but the reward of courage, which is to survive into the next adventure. And now let me hear my colleagues and their views. Nikki, would you like to kick off?
Sure. Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Roll of a Tangent. Goblin Night is a very interesting story, a story that has a lot of elements that crisscross with one another. It felt like a young adventure novel tied in with the golden age of sci-fi, and yet there being some darkness within that theming processed through the actual story that brought all of these things together. It reminded me of a fairy tale from a very dark age, like Brothers Grimm, unedited type of stuff, with the girl seemingly having some powerful psionic abilities. And as you said, this is the 4th story that we meet this protagonist in. So doubtlessly
Yeah.
she has more adventures under her belt, and maybe even her supportive cast has more than there is on the page. But I didn't know that this was the 4th tale where this girl appeared. It did feel like there is something to this character. But that also didn't detract from the story that this is the 4th one from the many that I read. Sorry, the many that there could be read.
I think we did one story on Telzey. Her name is very familiar.
Yeah. We
Are
did
you sure?
yeah,
Who did
we
we
did
do?
the first
A girl
one.
with psychic abilities and a huge pet.
Wait, wasn't there like a panther thing kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, right?
stalking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same Telzey. I see, I see,
Yeah.
I see. There you go, guys. I am senile.
Mm.
I can't even remember the previous story this Telzey was in. But to me, it felt exactly fresh. And the horrible memory aside, this is also what a good series should be like for me. Because if you pick up any Conan's tale, yeah, he's already talking about Conan. It's been like barely 5 minutes into this. You could pick up any story or give a story to anybody who's never read or doesn't know anything about Conan, and in that story, they'll get more than enough to know who this guy is and what he's up to.
Nikki, you can you have permission to talk about all the Conan and all the Warhammer that you want.
Okay, well, 2 hours later, they're still listening. So the sci-fi element was really cool. I really liked the powerful. And now that you've mentioned that we have met Telzey before, I'm starting to remember these small like ignorance from the previous story and how confident and good willing she was. And that is an interesting and stark contrast to the end of the story. And for those of you who want to read it, stop now because I'm going to spoil the ending. The fact that she turns the enemy, the antagonist, Robane, into a vegetable, and she's gonna keep him because she's going to use him in some other way, whatever way is going to be at that point useful. She doesn't even know like what she's gonna do exactly, but she's like, I'm just gonna keep him.
I think
that was
it's
so
to,
dark.
I think it's to pick his brain, so to speak, for information
Right,
about
but she
his
doesn't know
helpers.
the. Let me put it this way: she's just like, I know that there's value in here, but I don't really have a plan for what exactly I'm gonna get out of this, and so I'm just gonna keep him as a vegetable for now. I'm not gonna keep coming back and getting the information from him.
Fair
That's
enough.
what I find terrifying.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, and
Well,
you've
she
got.
wants to find out his content.
Yeah, Robert,
She wants to
I
find out
mean,
his content.
I'm gonna use some flowery language. It's still fucked up what she did. It's very, very bad. Like, probably the worst thing you could do to a human being. The only saving grace in this situation is that he doesn't know anymore because she lobotomized him. It would have been like the only way this could have been worse if he had the cognitive function of understanding that he's trapped in his body but can't do anything about it. So she's like just one step below the worst thing you could do to a person, in my opinion. So crazy.
Right. But he was a really bad guy. He was a murderer. Like,
yeah, I'm not saying he's a good
deserve
guy,
it.
but
Yeah.
like just because you tortured the torturer doesn't make you a good person, right? So
Oh, well.
the powerful retaliation that she has, the maturity of the tale, to have this like really dark through line and it really come to the surface at the end, because it felt dark, even though it had those themes of fairy tale-esque of like wonder of like what does sociability mean. There was also horror. There was also some real tension in the story. Like all of it combined together in 30 pages of great fun. I had a lot of I had a lot of thrills as I was reading the story, and I enjoyed it immensely. She's evil, though. I'm sorry. That's what I think. Actually, what did you think of the
I
story?
think I'd have done.
Oh yeah.
Did you say something, Robert?
I think I must be evil too, because I think I would have done the same. I don't think that people like Robane deserve any better. I wouldn't have tortured him, but making him into a vegetable is sounds like a good idea if I can learn how he managed to capture all these, entrap all these people so that it doesn't, so that the nobody who supplied him with these victims can do the same to anybody else.
Perhaps some knowledge should not, be dredged up. Maybe this stuff about the bandits, I agree with you, but she could have found that out immediately as she put him to the vegetable state. To me, it's more the fact that she's gonna keep him there for as long as she needs to in order to learn anything she can from him. You know, it's not just like, oh, I'm a good person, I'm gonna find out where the bad guys are hiding and I'm gonna end his misery. No, it's like, all right,
Well, it
now
didn't
he's
say
in my pickle jar.
it didn't say that she couldn't reverse it, right? So I mean, is there a possibility that she could reverse the bit?
Hard to see how you can reverse
Yeah.
lobotomization. You know, it's kind of like, oh, I can unkill this person. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So now, so now you want reality in your sci-fi fantasy story?
Oh,
Right?
sure. Yeah, of course. I insist
It's
on
like-
some level of believability in all my sci-fi story.
Fair enough,
Look,
but I mean, yeah,
we
the
don't
suspension of
have
disbelief?
any context of what's gonna happen next, of if she can reverse this or not. So based on the pure facts alone that we have in front of us, it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good for Telzey.
I always remember the line from the movie True Lies where Arnold says to Jamie Lee Curtis is like, "You've killed people?" And he says, "Yeah, but they were all bad." So there you go. I don't know. Yeah, she lobotomized him, but he was a bad man.
Yeah, he was a
So-
murderer. I mean, I'm not saying we should have sympathy for him, but
Yeah,
two
yeah.
things could be true at the same time.
But
It
true,
might be a
yeah.
just punishment, and it could also be a cruel thing to do.
For
But
a
yeah, actually, what
15-year-old,
you... Yeah, for a 15-year-old, it's really crazy.
XJ, take it away.
So this is almost a direct port of the Most Dangerous Game, I feel.
Yeah.
Right. So because we just did that some time ago, I was it immediately brought me back to mind. It took me a little bit longer to realize we also read about Telzey, however you say her name, before, but because that was way back in the past. But we did do a disappearing act just a few weeks ago, and so this quite the relationship between the two, well, not relationship, but the similarities between the two was very immediately obvious to me. I gotta say though, it didn't grab me quite as much as Goblin Night did not grab me quite as much as the Most Dangerous Game did. Part of it, I think, is probably something a little bit similar to what Nikki was saying, which is that I don't quite vibe with Telzey. She does not act at all like a 15-year-old. She sounds more like a jaded 30-year-old spy. You know what I mean? A jaded 30-year-old international spy. The way she's just like so matter of fact about a bunch of stuff, up to and including the stuff that Nikki was talking about, how she sort of just lobotomized Robane and then start thinking about, well, you know, we can still dig information out of his head about his network later on, and we'll just keep him in that state for a little while until we get to him. No judgment on whether that's a good thing or bad thing, but that just does not feel like what a 15-year-old would do. And even if we were to give her a little bit of like maybe she's been through a bunch of stuff, and in the first story she did go through a bunch of stuff, but it does not feel like a high school adventure kind of feel. It's definitely much more mature person than she would be on paper. The thing just doesn't match up. So I didn't quite get into the story as much as the Most Dangerous Game did. And also I think aside from that, the pacing of the story is pretty good. I did get drawn in during the confrontation between specifically when the spooks started showing up, right? And there was like this little tussle between them, and I gotta say, man, I'm a huge fan of the dog. Go dog, Chomir. Yeah. Who wouldn't want a pal like that, eh? Yeah, I think so. My overall feelings about the story was entertaining enough for me to have given it some attention. It was not quite as captivating for me as the Most Dangerous Game is. I think mostly it's just like the characterizations weren't so it didn't feel quite right to me. Like I could get into the count, and then I can't remember their names, but in the Most Dangerous Game there was the guy that is in the house, and then we have our shipwreck visitor. Both of them I can sort of get into, but not Telzey and Robane, not so much. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Anthony.
Yeah, I never read any stories by Schmidt, by this author, and I don't think I read that first story. That I don't think I was on the show when you guys read the first.
That was
story
a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of felt like, a returning rip snorting adventure, of a character that, it seemed like you had to know maybe a little bit about this character, but I mean, you didn't need to. I mean, it was kind of, she was introduced right away. I mean, she's this, maybe she's not cruel. Maybe she's just pragmatic. I don't know. It struck me as very pragmatic, and maybe that's just like, I don't know much about the Federation of the Hub stories, but I mean, maybe it just is that kind of universe where you have to be sort of pragmatic as it is, but maybe she has a touch of the affluenza, as they call it, where she's of the upper crust. She's from the upper crust of society.
I think when we were first introduced to her, she already had a little bit of maturity to her, but it wasn't quite so matter of fact as you put it. And maybe something happened in between the stories of when we first read about her, and then in the intervening 3 stories since, maybe something like that happened.
Maybe it's just being a psychic just makes you mature faster, sort of like Paul Muad'Dib's his sister in in Dune, where she's becomes preborn in the womb, and so she has these contact with the outer world prematurely. So maybe it's just an offshoot of her psychic powers, where she gets this life experience from other people that she contacts. But speaking of which, I thought the psionic powers were very well kind of described in this story. But I mean, the characters were just like, her friends were there. The dog was a more interesting character than any of her friends. Oh, by the way, so one of the friends, she was keeping Robane kind of functioning so she could pick his brain to figure out why he didn't realize he had psychic powers, to help her friend out, like to maybe help her friend come out of her psychic shell, so to speak, because her friend has latent psychic abilities but isn't able to really use them. So she was going to Telzey was going to pick her new vegetable guinea pig's brain to kind of find out maybe how she could help her friend become aware and use her psychic powers. She had a really strange name. Was it Gekis or Gekis? I don't know. Was her friend that was along on the trip?
Gikkes, if I remember right.
Yeah, or Gekkes or something. Yeah, so it was like Gekis. I don't know, but a suitably futuristic fantasy name. But I thought it was a good rip-roaring, kind of adventure tale. It definitely had shades of the fairy tale-esque to it. One little niggling thing for me was, they didn't really go into describing the monsters. It seemed like Schmidt wanted to, not the monsters, the other creatures on the planet. as a sci-fi fan, I feel like he could have put a little more effort into saying, "Oh, he said at one point, oh, there were some deer-like creatures." And again, that's not the point of the story; is to describe the wildlife of this planet. But give them something interesting to look like. I don't know. They had 6 legs instead of the four of terrestrial deer. Terran deer or whatever. I don't know. It was a little nitpick, but it seemed like he was pretty vague on that. Conveniently vague on what they look like, the other fauna of the planet. I don't know. Throw in something a little interesting there besides the goblin. That was the other thing. I think instead of just calling it the spook and the goblin, just call it. Say this is people call it a goblin. Why call it two things? I don't know. If the story is going to be Goblin Night, why not just call it? We refer to it as a goblin. It has no other name or whatever. So again, another little nitpick, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good pulpy story. If you like those kind of from that time period, from the '60s, those pulpy kind of stories. So it makes me interested in reading more of these stories from Schmidt about this foundation of the hub here, or federation of the hub, or whatever. I think I keep saying foundation because I've been reading the foundation thing again, so, and watching the show. But yeah, the federation of the hub. But anyway, yeah. So those are my initial thoughts. Robert.
Yeah, the monsters are actually a Schmidt's speciality. A lot of his stories had all kinds of them. For example, in the next Telzey story, I think there's a monster that can teleport itself, which is even more dangerous than the one she's faced in this one. So yeah, I don't have any difficulty in believing that a 15-year-old precocious teenage girl can be totally ruthless. I would have thought it's likely that she'd be more ruthless at age 15 than later on. So, and also one is allowed to write about exceptional people. So I never had any difficulty with believing what I was told on the page about Telzey. There's another main female protagonist in the hub stories who is much more emotionally attractive than Telzey, and some of the stories are about this other one, and in some of them she and Telzey get together to solve mysteries. So there's a wide variety of protagonists. Schmitz had a sort of speciality of having female leads in his stories. Not all of them, but I would say more than half of them. The some things I'd like to say about the story, which aren't particularly to do with the characters, but the fact that Schmitz doesn't rely on gimmicks at all to enable Telzey to survive. It's sort of what you see is what you get. There's no Deus ex machina involved. She has to dodge around, double back, and play for time as much as possible, in the hope that she can last long enough for Chomir to come and rescue her, and that's what happens. But it's described quite openly, so you know what the pieces on the board, as it were, are. It's like chess, and it's not like some sort of card game where you don't know what the suits are and that sort of thing. So I like that aspect. I like that aspect of it. And I also like the fact that whenever you read a Schmitz story, you're always aware, at least when you've read a few of them, of the sort of pulsating background to the story. Like in the Conan stories, actually, it's a question of being aware also of the world through which he's moving, and that has extra fascination. Come to think of it, the fact that these stories all happen, or almost all happen, within a few years of each other, as I said, is also like the Conan stories. They all happen within the hero's professional lifetime, as it were. It's not a future history like the Foundation series. both ideas are good, but this one is, if anything, my favourite pattern of a series.
Cool. So how many stories? You said enough short stories to fill 4 fat volumes. Robert?
Yeah, this is one of the fat volumes.
Mhm.
It's got over 400 pages in, and there are 4 roughly like that. And I would say perhaps half of them are either Telzey stories or Telzey and Trigger stories. So that leaves a lot of others, and some of them have really, really nightmarish creatures in them. The Searcher is one of the most nightmarish.
So sounds like
So,
sounds like
yeah.
sounds like my type of story actually. Lots of strange and wonderful creatures. Wonderful could be taken in any way.
Yeah, mostly in a bad way when we're talking about this current context.
Well, I like you. I am trying to pick my words in a diplomatic fashion.
What do we think of the antagonist of this story?
Kind of bland. Not quite as interesting as the dude in the Greatest Game.
Zaroff.
Yeah.
Zaroff.
Tarkov?
I feel like he was much more charismatic.
Fair enough.
I will give you that. No, I'm not talking about this guy. I'm talking about the guy in the Most Dangerous Game. So he was much more charismatic for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He was a big presence. This guy is terrifying.
You mean Robane?
Yeah.
I suppose so. I suppose I think the word I would use is creepy. Creepy. It's a bit creepy.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like he's a little bit like well, actually I think the word goblin might suit him better than the spook. He's a little bit like a sly little creature, hiding behind the shadows. That's the vibe he gives me.
Disgusting son of a bitch.
Yeah, he started identifying with the creature, so like he kind of blended with its mind, sort of. So he kind of couldn't tell the difference, almost maybe, or kind of took on some of its bloodthirstiness. So yeah, I thought that was pretty believable. And again, like, what's the influence of the things you connect with psychically? Yeah, he was. I mean, and it was interesting that he had like his lower half. I had a really vivid thing in my mind. So like his lower half of his body is like encased in like this flying like wheelchair or something. I imagine it as like a hover sort of device where he's sort of inserted permanently.
You know, like the funny thing is like the image that popped into my mind was Charles Xavier from X.
Yeah, yeah, like that thing, that flying wheelchair flying chair that he had in like the cartoon series, right?
Yeah.
That's
literally the thing that popped into my mind. I was like, okay.
No, I think just put.
Why are you shaking your head and rolling your eyes, Nikki?
I can't believe what I'm hearing here.
That is the image that popped in my mind, though. It was it's literally a floating wheelchair.
Yeah, I mean, he it was interesting, but maybe that made him cruel. People sometimes, he
look like Professor Xavier.
No, the fact that he got into an accident. He was in an accident, so it made him probably bitter, and he became villainous. I mean, sometimes people suffer trauma, and it drives them to be bitter and cruel, right? So I mean.
Right, that's the message we needed to take from the story. Disabled people can be evil too.
Right. Well, hey, anybody can be.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. I was just
right.
talking about a wheelchair. Come on.
In fact, I kind of like the fact that this guy, although he has this like one quality where you could feel like sorry for him, you immediately don't feel sorry for him. He's creepy from the start. When he's like talking to the Talzin, is like, come find me. Oh my god. And she's like, why would I do that? Which is a good question. And he stops. As soon as there was that long pause, I was like, nah. No. Don't go there. No. He's trying to think of a scenario. He's trying to think of a way to make you feel bad for him. And then he goes into it. And he's like, whoa, woe is me. I'm stuck here. I'm like middle-aged. I'm like, get out. Get out, Telzey. Like, get the hell out. Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing, the whole like the feeling like when Robane was like being introduced, and then there's that whole thing going on, right? It just like brought me like this. It's not just I feel like the description of this guy is like, you know, how some really depraved people would go around trying to fish for younger younger people. Like the whole pattern is just like very, very similar. And so like the whole time Robane just gave me very creepy vibes. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I much prefer villains who are like
Charismatic.
like the Cossack in unfortunately that's the only thing I remember about him, that he's Russian.
Well, good enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's exciting.
He's got style, man. The guy's got style.
Exactly. Yeah, he's larger than life.
He's
This guy's
aura
just
farming. He's
crazy.
aura farming the whole time through the story.
Yeah, aura farming. Robert, are you aware what aura farming means? Have you ever heard of the
What means?
aura farming?
What?
Have you ever heard about this?
Aura farming? No.
Yeah, aura farming. Okay, so it's basically doing something very badass and then reveling in how badass you are. Like, for example, imagine a action movie hero. He shoots a guy and then he turns around and the explosion happens in the background, but he doesn't look. That's aura farming, right? Like, so that's you like walking away from the explosion because you're just so cool. You're kind of in the moment, but you really don't care. So that's what aura farming is. It's a new term.
I mean, come on. That dude was aura farming the whole time. He was just like super cool. I'm this badass, but you don't know, and then I'm gonna, show you how badass I am.
No, I like it. I don't know if Conan does a lot of aura farming. I think he just does farming. Like killing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you want to say, Anthony?
Conan does a lot of reaping of souls of the bad guys. No, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess he seemed, yeah. I mean, he was mostly a mustache twirling villain, I guess, but at least he did have a little, kind of motivational, inciting thing that made him maybe explain his cruelty, with his crippling, in some accident. So, and if it was under the auspices of some cruel, corporation or for working for the government of this federation, and they don't really care, and they kind of maybe cast him aside. So I found myself kind of world building him a little bit, I guess, in my mind to justify his cruelty. But yeah, it was he definitely was a little creepy with his connection to the goblin. He was a coming bestial in a way, I guess, through his connection. And the interesting thing, I really liked how the story went into how Telzey was able to like see the weaknesses in his machinery that boosted his latent psychic powers, and how she was able to slip through the flaws in his machinery that he didn't quite understand himself. So he hadn't even really understood the psychic realm or like what he had created. So she exploited that weakness. So I thought that was very clever, and how she kind of used his technology against him and the weaknesses that he couldn't sense. So yeah, I thought that was very clever. So I think to me that kind of cleverness and the way he described the psi powers was elevated sort of a mundane sort of tropey tale where it was like, oh, most dangerous game, you're being chased by a cruel, being in the forest or whatever, So I think it made it a little more exciting that way and interesting to me.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good to think about the traps that an author did not fall into when writing. For example, it would be so easy when writing about psi powers to end up with a lot of waffle, and some authors do that, but this one doesn't. I'm thinking of
Indeed.
C.L. Moore in her Northwest Smith stories, which do have a lot of waffle in them.
Yeah, the
but
psychic stuff was handled
unfortunately-
very, very well. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's just what I was saying. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. All right.
Okay. So do we have anything else you want to say about the short story? Another
I'll say one
Telzey.
more thing.
Yeah.
No, I think
I'll say one more thing. The dog is the MVP. We all
Right?
need a
That's
dog.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Go
dog is
Chomir.
the MVP. Oh,
Yeah.
What a guy.
yeah.
What a
The
dude,
dog
man.
Yeah.
in, another. Yeah.
I felt like
he should be the main character as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Yeah, we could do an entire short story based on just. That would be an interesting challenge, right from the perspective of something you don't usually write from, so like an animal. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
and I guess maybe he seemed like he was more than a dog, but I don't think that really was overtly described in the story. But he seemed like, it made me wonder, is he like sort of like a genetically modified, again, this is the future, so, but never went into that. But I guess that's just, again, my brain filling in the world building.
Well, Chomir was bred as an Ascanum hound, and Ascanum is a world which figures in one of the other hub stories. Although the dog also appears in one of them, though not in that one. But Ascanum is a sort of adventure playground of a world in which lots of silly people undergo sort of Game of Thrones type intrigues, and one of their things is breeding hounds to fight to the death in arenas. So
Okay.
yeah, he's one of those.
Yeah, I guess they didn't go into like the how of the breeding, So, but yeah, that world seemed like it was sort of like almost a gladiatorial world too. Like, so I guess there's lots of killing and backstabbing on that planet. So, am I right in that, Robert? Or I forget how you pronounce it, but it seemed like it was sort
Which
of like
planet are you talking
the one where you said that they're
Ascanum, you mean? Yeah.
Azkaban or Azkaban. I want to say Azkaban, but that's not right. That's Harry Potter. Yeah, but it seemed like it was more like, I don't know, I guess it was like gladiatorial, or at least maybe like way you're describing it as like infighting, political intrigue,
Yeah,
things
as I
like
say, sort of Game of Thrones type place.
that. Gotcha. Yeah,
Yep.
the dog was a great character. Loved him too.
What a boy.
So I guess we're all agreed that Chomir is the real star of the show.
That's right.
Yeah.
Next short story about the dog.
Chomir. All right. So, do we have anything else we want to say?
Yeah. Anyone?
No. Then let's go. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to see if anyone. Yeah, I was just saying. Anyone? No.
No?
Going once, going twice.
All right.
Okay, so
shall we roll on to a score then?
sure.
Let's start with Robert. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You got a perfect score. And Nikki?
I'm gonna ruin that perfect score. I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Oh,
I think it's a
8.5.
really good story. The additional 0.5 points, I was originally gonna give it an 8, is from the dog. Dog's awesome. Love the dog. Thank you.
And Anthony?
I'll give it an 8. I think the story was a little straightforward, a little kind of predictable in a way, but he messed with our minds and kind of gave him a little more unpredictable towards the end as far as like how she was going to get out of it. He kind of sprinkled along the trail the breadcrumbs of how she was going to get out of it with like finding the weakness in his machines and his lack of psi ability, But yeah, I mean, as far as like a good and entertaining, distracting tale, it makes me want to read more of these hub stories of this universe. So that if that accomplished that, so yeah, I'll give it an 8.
Right. Well, my score would be a 7. And it would have been a 6 because I mean, like the story didn't quite grab me as much as the Most Dangerous Game did. The only reason is 7. It's because of Chomir.
Yeah.
MVP of the show.
Good dog.
Yeah, good dog. All right. So I guess that wraps up our discussion on Goblin Night. And please check out the story if you have time. It's actually, even though my score was kind of low, it's still a perfectly enjoyable tale. And like and subscribe to our channel if you like our discussion. And we will see you all in a little bit. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching.